Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Black Adam. These powers are not a gift, they're a curse. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things Geekcentric. Joining me for today's super-sized spoiler-free review is none other than the Atom Smasher in my life, Mr. Kevin Hudson. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Am I the Atom Smasher because I'm always getting bigger? Is that what's going on here? Okay,
no,
it's
I
a
just feel like,
issue. Give me a break.
No, I just think, we will talk more about Atom Smasher, but he's a bit of a comedic, lovable character, and he has strength like no other. So I feel like, that's a fitting
And a tendency
persona
to
for
accidentally
Kevin Hudson.
break things, which has plagued me my whole life. So
Well, I didn't want to say it, but you said it. That's cool. Well, we got a lot to talk about today, man. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this is our spoiler-free review for Black Adam, the latest movie in the DC Extended Universe from Warner Brothers. A huge thanks to our new friends at Warner Brothers Canada for inviting us to see this movie ahead of its release. This movie hits theaters October 21st. But before we get into our spoiler-free discussion about this movie, I thought we could spend some time talking about this fan event we were lucky enough to attend, also from the invitation of Warner Brothers Canada. Thank you so much, which was called Black Adam Rocks Canada. Now, if you don't know what this was all about, let me fill you in. Dwayne Johnson, star and producer of the highly anticipated Black Adam, electrified thousands of Canadian fans in Toronto this past week to celebrate the release of his new DC action film. Johnson thrilled more than 900 diehard fans at Black Adam Rocks Canada, an exclusive event at Cineplex's The Rec Room here in Toronto, before surprising 20,000 Toronto Maple Leaf fans at the NHL team's home opener, which was wild. Johnson took to the stage as the grand finale of the Black Adam Rocks Canada, where he surprised the audience by awarding not one, but two grand prizes, which included a trip to Los Angeles, tickets to the Warner Brothers Studio Hollywood Tour, courtesy of IMAX, a CineClub membership, courtesy of Cineplex, and a one-year supply of Zoa, Johnson's sugar-free energy drink, which expanded into Canada earlier this past week. The event, which was presented by Audi Canada, Cineplex, and Rogers Sports Media, dominated Cineplex's The Rec Room, becoming the first time a movie studio has taken over the entire venue to promote a theatrical release. Following the event, attendees took part in the March to the Movie up John Street to Cineplex Scotiabank Theatre in Toronto, led by drummers from Rhythm Works. Excitement on the March of the Movie was high, with hundreds of fans chanting, waving flags, and wearing their official Black Adam gear. After the march, participants became among the first in Canada to watch Black Adam before its theatrical release this Friday, October 21st. While fans embarked on the march, Johnson participated in a national red carpet press line, speaking with Canadian broadcasters, radio, digital, and print outlets. Black Adam Rocks Canada was hosted by Mark Strong, who goes by the stage name Strizzy, and included DJ sets from recording artist, producer, and official DJ of the Toronto Raptors Four Corners. All attendees received keepsake commemorative tickets and Black Adam swag to showcase their excitement. Fans were also offered world-exclusive photo opportunities, complimentary food, and select attendees took home exclusive prizes, including CineClub memberships, courtesy of Cineplex, and an evening at the Shangri-La Hotel, tickets to professional sports games in Toronto, a complimentary stay at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel, and, of course, Black Adam Under Armour prize packs, and so much more. We actually posted a promo hype reel with some footage that we were able to capture at the event, which is available on our Instagram and on our YouTube. Links will be in the show notes. But Kev, what did you think of this event, man? This was a wild, wild day.
No, this was definitely cool. It's kind of the first sort of event like this that I've been to, and so it was really cool to go into the separate press line and get our lanyards like that. Felt very professional. And then, just walking around the event, there was a good buzz going on. There was some great food, really tasty treats they were giving out. And while I think the wait for Dwayne himself to finally come on stage was a little long, that didn't as much build my hype level for it as much as it threatened to diminish it. But I get that it's all about pomp and circumstance, and you got to plug the sponsors and you got to do all that stuff. But no, I mean, you and I have been friends since the late '90s, and we sort of, one of the things that started our friendship was enjoying professional wrestling, and so we've kind of been fans of Dwayne Johnson since the late '90s, since we were just teenagers, and so to finally be that close to him. I mean, we've been and we were saying how this is the first time we've been in the same room as Dwayne since we were at the Sky Dome for WrestleMania 18 when he took on Hulk Hogan in that legendary match. But this is a bit different in that we were no more than about 10 to 15 feet away. We got super close. And so that was sort of a really, really cool moment. So, all in all, I think they put together a really great event. And, for fans of movies, for fans of DC, for fans of, The Rock himself, this was a bit of something for everyone. And it really did deliver in the hype in that regard.
Yeah, no, it was amazing for the city of Toronto to be one of the many stops on the Black Adam global tour, and Warner Brothers did not disappoint. It was a very seamless event experience that allowed us, the fans who, The Rock has, in countless interviews leading up to this movie's release, has acknowledged that this movie is for the fans. So this was an experience unlike anything. It allowed the fans to interact and see Dwayne and get that sort of hype as they march towards the movie theater to actually watch this movie in IMAX. So I think it was a huge success and really great. And I think someone on Twitter was pointing out it's been like 20 years, but I think that was after Mania that you referenced. But needless to say, it's been a while since The Rock has been in Toronto. And yes, I'm calling him The Rock because, like you said, Kevin, we are wrestling fans. That is how we know him, and he did not disappoint, giving us the finally The Rock. It was so good. It was so good to hear. And what happened after was just everyone was chanting Rocky, Rocky, like it was wrestling. So it was cool. It was really great to see. So it was a huge event, and hats off to the entire PR team and Warner for creating such an experience. You could, like you said, Kevin, you could feel the energy and the excitement was really about Dwayne's presence being there and that energy leading into it. So it was tons of fun. So yeah, we're super grateful for the opportunity to be there, to cover it, to be that close too. 'Cause man, he is huge. Again, like you said, we've seen him at WrestleMania and other wrestling events, and even then he's already so small because we're so far away in a large arena. Here we're as you said, 10 to 15 feet away from him, and man, does he have stage presence beyond anything.
Oh,
it's just
absolutely.
Huge,
Plus, I mean, when we were watching him in wrestling, at least way back then, he had.
Yeah. He was
sort
smaller.
of undergone the transformation that he did, after leaving wrestling. And so to see him that close, boy, howdy do his shirts fit well. Let's just say that. He's a specimen. It's obvious. My mom is forever going to be jealous that we were that close to her number one celeb crush. So I'll get to bug her about that one for a little while longer. So it was really cool. It's one thing to sort of promote a movie like this. It's another to bring a star as big as The Rock into be around his fans like that. That just helps elevate things so much more.
For sure. The hype was palpable, especially going into that movie. I think everyone was just riding that wave, was excited to get to the theater and watch the movie. So with that out of the way, let's get into our spoiler-free discussion about Black Adam. Let me give you some details about this movie. From New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers Pictures, Dwayne Johnson stars in the action-adventure Black Adam, the first ever feature film to explore the story of the DC superhero, which comes to the big screen from the direction of Jaime Coyet Serra, who also directed Jungle Cruise, another movie starring The Rock, nearly 5,000 years after he was bestowed with the almighty powers of the ancient gods and imprisoned just as quickly. Black Adam, played by The Rock, is freed from his earthly tomb, ready to unleash his unique form of justice on the modern world. Johnson stars alongside Aldous Hodge as Hawkman, Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher, Sarah Shahi as Adriana, Marwan Kanzari as Ishmael, Quintessa Swindell as Cyclone, Bodhi Sabangu as Aman, and Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate. Black Adam smashes into theaters and IMAX internationally beginning October 19th, 2022, and in North America on October 21st, 2022. It will be distributed worldwide by Warner Brothers Pictures. All right, Kevin, let's get into discussing this movie, starting where we always do. What worked for you, man?
It's really interesting because when you have a presence like The Rock, it's almost hard to imagine that he won't just be the main focus of a movie like this. And yet I found myself far more gravitated to some of the secondary characters a bit more. And for me, number one would be Pierce Brosnan. I thought he was really, really excellent in his performance here, in his role as Dr. Fate. We always say it with some of the Marvel characters, how I'm not too familiar with them going into this project, and the same can be said about most of the DCEU characters outside of the big players like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. So I've never heard of Dr. Fate. I really didn't know what he was about. But again, I think just Pierce Brosnan really, really brought it in this movie. He was my favorite part of the movie. But I also think the other members of the Justice Society of America, the JSA, did their jobs really, really well here. I thought, oh man, just on the surface, they kind of look cheesy, and maybe we'll get into that as we go along here. But the performances, I think, above all, were really, really solid from all members of the JSA in this one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had written down here, the JSA. I think that they were outstanding. Aldous Hodge as Hawkman, you could feel his energy as a leader. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, a very unique character, very Doctor Strange-esque. He brought that level of gravitas to his character and this seniority and this confidence. I think that can be said about all the characters in the JSA, that they were confident in their roles. Noah Centineo as Atom Smasher and Quintessa Swindell as Cyclone, they were fantastic as well. They were sort of the opposite of Hawkman and Dr. Fate. They were new. They were younger. They were very much discovering how to be a part of this team. And they had some great moments. I feel like they were the young comedic aspects of this movie, and we as the viewer were very much aligned with them as we are new to this as well. And watching their power sets, Atom Smasher getting huge, and Kevin, as you mentioned, he's kind of breaking stuff and fumbling as you see him sort of figuring it out. Whereas Cyclone is she's so confident again in her use of her powers, and the color and the vibrancy of her powers was so amazing. The special effects was really, really cool. In all honesty, though, I actually wish that the JSA had their own movie, and maybe there's an opportunity for that. I'm not sure, but it feels like, again, like this movie has two sides to it. It's Black Adam and it's JSA, and the JSA definitely stands out. The Rock was The Rock, and I think he was definitely leaning into being a bit more darker, but at the same time, this isn't that far off from any of the other characters we've seen him portray. But that said, it is great to see the realization of Black Adam come to the big screen after, 15 plus years of him being attached to this movie. So it was really great to see him finally don the costume and the cape and be the character. I guess the other real big standout for me were these action set pieces that just were so massive and so vicious. They were a wild ride. They spared no expense in terms of the level of destruction and just the intensity, and they were very well choreographed, and they still stick with me. Like, after watching this movie so many days ago, they're still in my mind. But at the same time, that's kind of the only thing that really does stick in my mind. I think the action scenes were almost a little too heavy-handed. So while it worked for the movie in terms of giving us this darker, brooding, not your Superman, not your Shazam hero style level action, it was just a bit much, but still fun.
I think you said it fairly well there, in that like there was some pretty fun, exciting action pieces, and I just think maybe it was hindered a little by the whole idea about the character being this dark, anti-hero rather than, our traditional heroes that we're used to sort of focusing on in these films. But what sort of hindered that a little was changing it from an R rating to a PG-13 rating, which I think changed the dynamics of some of these action set pieces. So that's almost unfortunate, just because of the fact that the potential was there and there was a lot of fun. And again, it's these secondary characters that bolster all of the action and sort of allow you to care about what's going on and allow you to care about the fates of the characters during these action set pieces. So I do think on the whole that element of it was handled well by director Dwayne Colette Serra. I think for the most part the action lived up to the hype of this being a big building smashing blockbuster, though like you said there are issues surrounding that we might break down a little bit more.
And I think again that's the entertaining part, you know what I mean? Like what we've just described here and what worked is very much the entertaining part of this movie. Obviously you have The Rock as well, he is the electrifying man on screen. But yeah, let's get into what didn't work, and I guess I'll just kick things off kind of leading off what we were talking about. The action scenes were great, but there was a lot of them. And I think that a lot of what didn't work for me really comes from a writing and story standpoint. The movie is far more spectacle and over-the-top action than anything else, really. It feels more concerned about wowing audiences with the intensity of those sequences rather than making you care for the characters. Granted, as you mentioned, there are some characters that you do care for, but we don't spend enough time with them. There's not enough groundwork really that's laid out for us to really, really care. And I just feel like the overall, like the story is very thin and very lean, and it shows given how heavy-handed the action of this movie is and how much that is the focus over the story. It is very much about the spectacle over the story. So for me, that is one thing that very much shows in this movie. It is entertaining, yes, but there's just a very thin and light story that is being stretched for that 2 hours.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, oh God, we still have to tell another hour. Like at the hour point of the movie, I went, there's a whole other hour here, but they're kind of they've told us everything we need to know. We've learned the stakes. We know what's going on. What could they possibly do to fill this hour? And like you said, it's let's do another big action set piece. And I think the movie wants to play with this idea of, it not just being black and white, that there are the gray areas in between, the role of morality in doing your duty as a superhero. And yet it doesn't spend nearly enough time exploring those ideas. And so, like those brief glimmers of dialogue between characters that you get in between the big action set pieces are great. And they really showcase the terrific cast that they put together for this movie. And I think if a little bit more time had been spent there, it would have just justified the stakes a little bit more for everything going on. And I think it would have made all of that action mean a bit more if we just understood why it was necessary, if anything. And so,
exactly.
Yeah, I just think they really missed an opportunity there, especially with the character of Black Adam, who I never once... because they told me, I understood that he wasn't a good guy, but I never once felt that his actions on the screen sort of conveyed that message. I was never once going, wow, this is a real bad guy that needs to be stopped. I just never found that to be the case.
Yeah, I think you're hitting it right on the head there. I think that they told more than they showed in those instances, right? Like they implied that he's a bad guy, that he did these things, and he's a dark hero, if you will, or an anti-hero or whatever. But I don't know, I don't think I really connected with understanding that he was that character. I don't know if this does justice to a fitting origin story for him, given the fact that, like, you know, we're being introduced to his character, and then we have the JSA that's very much there as a reminder for him to be what it's like to be a hero, to be, you know, to be fighting for good and to protect those. And I see that that's the purpose that they served and why they were interjected in this movie. But again, like, I kind of wanted to spend more time with the JSA. And you know, kind of learning more about them. Even how they're introduced is very fast. It's just kind of like, here it is. Here's these characters. It just all felt like didn't really matter as much, if anything. And the villain was extremely weak. You know, again, another faceless villain who's after a MacGuffin that is a key to ultimate power. It just, again, it all felt the same of what we've already gotten from past DC movies, with heavy-handed exposition, moving fast through certain things, spending more time on stuff that you don't necessarily need to spend more time, and not really having a focus on character rather than the spectacle.
Yeah, this is very much a case of, this might as well have been Steppenwolf again. This is just another big horned DCEU villain set out on destruction for some reason. And that's about all we're gonna get. That's about all we're gonna be told, and then it's, you know, an hour and a half plus of fighting over that. And it's so funny that you mentioned the introduction of the JSA, and it was done in such a similar fashion to Suicide Squad, the first one, right? And like, I even found Aldous Hodge's character of Carter Hall being very much a Rick Flag.
Yes.
And then he's doing this roll call. Okay, we've got this guy, and we've got this one. You know, he might as soon as I was waiting for him to say, and her sword will capture your sword or your soul. You know, like, So it was very, and then it was just like, there's the characters. That's all you're going to get to sort of know about them, and you know, so, but please care about them. You know, and again, as we mentioned, you know, in what worked, because the performances were so charismatic and charming, I did kind of care about them, but that's a credit to the actors far more than to the screenwriting here and the story that they were given.
Yes, well said. Well said. Okay, listen, I think we've given what works, what didn't work. I think it's time. Let's give our final thoughts and our score, which will be on a rating of 1 to 5 Shazams.
I like it. Now, if I yell my score here and I transform, I apologize in advance. I just think, unfortunately, as much as the hype surrounding this has been, like, the marketing here has been pretty intense. I think DC's really hoping for a big, huge blockbuster success here. Not that, you know, most of their films are successful from a box office perspective, but in terms of reception, I don't know that they've really done enough here to change the kind of reception that they've gotten in the past. It feels further away from the best movies of the DCEU and closer to the worst ones, in my opinion. I think DC struggles with this idea that, just like Marvel, they're trying to combine so many different types of comic book superhero elements. You've got your standard all-powerful beings. You've got your ancient relics that give people powers. You've got your alien powers. You've got your witchcraft. You've got technology. But they don't seem to know how to mesh all of those ideas together. It all just feels very patchwork. And it doesn't sort of blend into these cohesive stories and these cohesive teams when we do see them all together on the screen. And so I never feel fully invested in believing in these ideas as they're presented to me. And so the whole time watching this movie, it was kind of like, I just don't know what you've done here to make me really care. And then, you know, breaking down the plot without any spoilers, it's a, you know, bare bones sort of generic, you know, a bad guy wants to get his hands on a power for some reason, and that's all you're going to know. And that just leaves the movie feeling hollow, in my opinion. It just, it doesn't lend enough to justify all of the devastation that comes in the wake of it. And DC just seems to have no problem killing tens of thousands of innocent civilians during their movies. And then these people who luckily survive don't seem to be all that upset about it. So that always just feels a little weird to me, that they're willing to just destroy countless city blocks for the sake of an action spectacle without giving us a big enough reason to care. Dwayne Johnson, is always charismatic. He's always charming. He always has a commanding screen presence. But he's still just always Dwayne Johnson. And so this is just another movie of Dwayne Johnson doing Dwayne Johnson things, but this time he's got a lightning bolt on his chest. I just don't find there's enough differentiation when he's in these big action movies to sort of tell which character he's what his motivations are, all of those things. It's just a one-note performance that if you like it, you're going to love this. You're going to love to see him in a superhero movie doing big, this is the most he's had because of his powers to be a badass and to really cause havoc. But so again, if you're a Dwayne Johnson fan, this is going to do it for you. I think you're going to love this. But if you're looking for more out of your comic book movies than just action set pieces, it's not really here. It's interesting that the director and the writers of this have all worked with The Rock in different movies in the past, and I think I liked all of those movies better for one reason or another. There's rumors about the post-credit scene. We won't get into that, but I'm sure that'll get a lot of people talking, probably more so than the movie itself, especially with regards to the future of the DC EU. I'm just not sure this movie itself does anything to sort of say, we're under new management, we've got a new vision, and here it is, because this just feels like a lot of the same.
A lot of the old.
And that was kind of disappointing. I was expecting this to feel new and different, and it really didn't. So as a result, I'm going to give this 2 out of 5 Shazams.
Well, I got to say, I agree with much of your sentiments, Kev. I do find myself, days after watching this movie, thinking more about some of the charming cast. Like you said, Aldous Hodge, Pierce Brosnan, the entire JSA. They were fantastic. I wish we had more time with them. I wish we had more development with them. So hopefully maybe we'll see another story with them. Who knows? And yeah, The Rock was The Rock, 100%. He got to be a little bit more on the evil side. He is so charismatic and charming, and he's so captivating, whether it be in person or on the screen. So I think that this movie, on those merits, it's going to be a success. And, again, the action scenes, there's a lot of them, but they're good. Some of them are a little more heavy-handed than others, but some of them are well choreographed. And this movie delivers on the promise of an adrenaline-fueled, action-packed movie, but not much in regards to story and actual character development. This movie feels more like a necessity to introduce Black Adam rather than it being a meaningful origin story. It falls victim to the typical tropes of superhero origin stories with heavy-handed exposition, a faceless villain who's after a MacGuffin, an unlikely team forced to work together with very little background around who they are and where they come from. It all just felt rushed and less important versus the scope of the action, which is very much the entertainment factor, the wow factor of this movie. And given that last year we got probably one of the best DC films with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad that properly balances story and spectacle, I do think it's possible for DC to find a way to tell these stories with a sense of balance. The Rock has been going on the record saying that the hierarchy of the DC universe is about to change. Now, I think you can interpret that on different levels. For myself, in terms of the universe, with the introduction of this character, sure, we will have to wait and see, as you said, Kevin, who he's going to interact with in the DC universe. But in terms of a story, this feels very similar to what we have already gotten from the DC universe, which is just a mishmash of so much with a real lack of focus and a hope that what will carry the movie to success is star power. The Rock, Pierce Brosnan, is this charming cast that comes together that does make it actually very entertaining, that with the action. So overall, I think this movie is entertaining, but for myself, it left me wanting more from a story perspective. It made me want more from the perspective of just even being more meaningful, in that, as we were talking about, understanding the roots and the origin of Black Adam as an anti-hero, someone who has to understand what doing bad for good really looks like. Show me that conflict. Show me that meaningful journey. You called it out, Kevin. Like there's a very hollow aspect to this movie, and even the human characters, non-power strong characters, add to the hollowness. They don't provide any emotional depth. It just feels very generic. So I was expecting more more. But that said, I do think that people who love The Rock, who love the DCU, this is a movie for them. They're going to enjoy the action, the spectacle. And like you said, we're not going to talk about it because if you want, you can go on the internet and find out about it. But that end credit will have people excited for the future of the DC universe. And if anything, that was the purpose of this movie. Just saying. So for that reason, I'm actually going to give this a 2.5 out of 5 Shazams. I'm going a little bit higher because, again, the JSA was a highlight. And I think that their personality really did have me hooked into this movie more so than anything from a story perspective. And you called it out, Kev, given the fact that it looks like there's a shift in leadership that's going to be happening obviously at Warner with DC properties, and who knows what's next. With The Rock being Black Adam and his introduction to this universe, I'm wondering what sort of seat at the table he is going to have in regards to making those decisions, helping push those stories, because he has been in a lot of his interviews talking about doing this for the fans, and this is what the fans want. And I feel like, given his star power and his ability to put asses in the seats, I feel like he's going to have a large part from a producing standpoint. Like you said, much of the creative team behind this movie are part of Dwayne's team at $7. So it'll be interesting to see what's next for the DCU with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Well, that is it for our spoiler-free review for Black Adam, which hits theaters this Friday, October 21st. Again, a huge thanks to our friends at Warner Brothers Canada for inviting us out for the fan event, Black Adam Rocks Canada, and to attend this IMAX screening so that we could get you this review nice and early. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, feel free to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show and share your thoughts on Black Adam once you've seen it in theaters, well, you can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other geeky content out for you to enjoy, including 2 watch clubs. One we just wrapped for She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Marvel Studios Disney Plus original series. All 9 episodes are available to stream on Disney Plus, with all 9 episodes of our watch club available wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, we have our ongoing Andor watch club. We are doing it a bit differently. We're doing it in chunks because this is a different series compared to anything else that we've done. So that'll be coming soon. Plus, we also have a ton of interviews for you to enjoy, both on podcast feeds and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric. But we also have a ton of new content on its way. We have a spoiler-free review in the works for Tales of the Jedi, the latest animated series to hit Disney Plus towards the end of this month, I believe October 26th. We also are looking at doing some coverage for the upcoming Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is hitting theaters November 11th. So stay tuned to see what we got in store for you for that, because that'll be hitting both YouTube and podcast feeds. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts so you know when our latest episodes drop. But until then, Kev, thank you so much for joining me for today's electrifying spoiler-free review for Black Adam. And as we say,
get home safe, guys.
Peace.